Okay, good morning everybody. Rich from Virginia Beach. It's Monday, September 9th, 2024. And we haven't done a drive and talk in a while. So let's do that. In the Beamer today, wanted to do an update. Haven't done an update in quite some time, so I figured it's about time. Got some resolution on a tax issue I had from 2021. Talk about that. Going to talk about property taxes that I'm dealing with, how I'm dealing with it, what's the likely outcome, whatnot. Just a little bit of everything, kind of all over the place. Haven't done an update in a while. Haven't done a drive and talk in even longer. And it's Monday, like I said, the 9th of September. It's 9:37 a.m. Beautiful day. It's about 72 degrees outside. I love the fall. I love the spring. Those are my two favorite times of the year. So let's get out and do a little driving and talking. Did a few mods to the old Beamer. In case you haven't noticed, it's a little louder. Thing runs like a raped ape now. But if it's too loud, I'll roll the windows up, but I don't think it will be. We'll see. We'll go through the neighborhood, go down by the ocean front, my standard run-of-the-mill drive and talk. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's not getting too wrapped up over this presidential election, because whether it's Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, or not Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, I really don't think it matters much. They're all pretty much selected. Not really sure how much the actual vote of the American people actually makes a difference. I think they already sent out a bunch of absentee ballots, and it's just a mess. There should not be absentee ballots. I think the only absentee ballots should be those that are in the military, that are overseas and cannot participate. They're still American citizens, but they're deployed overseas to do whatever the government tells them to do. And I think they should be allowed to vote. Anybody else, if they want to vote and they're voluntarily overseas, they need to come to the United States and vote in person, or they forfeit their vote. I mean, that's a choice. I think there should be voter ID laws. I mean, to cash a check, you have to have an ID. A lot of states, to buy alcohol, you have to have an ID. To travel overseas, you need an ID. You need a passport. That's a form of identification. Supposedly one of the most sacred things we can do as American people is vote for our supposed representatives, right? Those that represent us. Well, if you can't prove who you are when you do it, then you shouldn't be doing it. I think a lot of that's to let a lot of these illegals in and promise them, you know, we're going to give you money and a place to live and a free plane ticket wherever you want to go if you vote for whoever we tell you to vote for. Can't prove it, don't know, but that's sure what it seems like to me. Just from an average guy talking about average things, thinking critically. I don't need to be told how to think. I just need to be fed accurate, truthful information, and I'm perfectly capable of making up my own mind on everything. Just don't feed me a bunch of bullshit and feed me the truth, and I can figure the rest out from there. That's why I haven't been watching mainstream media for the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years. What a difference. So anyway, we'll get to my tax situation. specifically my 2021 income tax that I've been fighting with for the last 2.5 years to get resolved. Well, it's been resolved. And I've talked about this before, but to give you a quick overview, in 2021, I paid my mortgage off. It was a rather substantial mortgage. I'd rolled some debt into the house, foolishly rolled some debt into the house. You know, getting married and divorced a couple times, married once since I owned the house. Refinanced along the way, rolled some debt into it foolishly. So I had like $167,000 to pay off. So when I got laid off indefinitely from my job in March 26th of 2020, that I've been working at for 1 month shy of 11 years. So I just say 11 years I worked there. Worked my way up, did different things, made decent money, put a lot of it away in my 401k. Put about 25% of my income into my 401k for those years. So I had a nice little chunk of money when I got let go. Wasn't fully unexpected that I was going to let go, kind of halfway expected, just really didn't know when it was going to happen. So, you know, honestly, it was kind of like a relief when I found out when it happened. So, that's about the time I started figuring out the fraud that has become income taxes. I'm sorry, income tax too, but property taxes as well. So, I had a mortgage at the time on my house through Rocket Mortgage. And I picked up my mortgage statement one day after I was laid off. Finally had time. I already got my to-do list done. It'd been a couple weeks since I'd been laid off. And I decided to just go ahead and retire. So, now that I had time, had my yard all caught up, had that stuff done, had all my crap done that I'd been putting off for years, finally got it done, decided to retire, and my mortgage statement comes in the mail, which it did every month, and I just paid it, never thought much about it at all, ever, really. Was never late on a payment, always made my payments on time. I was trying to pay a little bit more every month so I could get it whittled down, and I was just going to do it naturally. Well, I'd seen how much money I was paying towards taxes on my bill, because your mortgage statement is a combination of 4 different things. You got your principal of your loan, your interest of your loan, your taxes, and your insurance is all rolled into your mortgage payment that you make every month. So I got to looking at my taxes, which is property taxes, and your taxes and your insurance is all part of your escrow account, which can change year to year. If your taxes go up, your escrow, amount will go up every year. And they forecast it out for the year and estimate what your escrow is going to be based on your mortgage premiums and your property taxes. So I got to looking at the taxes, and I'm like, holy crap, look how much money I'm paying every month in taxes. Well, why is that? So I decided to make a phone call. I made a phone call to my mortgage company, which was Rocket Mortgage. I said, hey, how do you know how much and where to pay my property taxes? How does that get figured out? And how do you know these things? So they told me. They said, well, the city of Virginia Beach sends us a bill. I said, do you have a contact for the city of Virginia Beach? They said, yeah, they gave me a phone number to an office that takes care of that. So I called them up. It was the treasurer's office of Virginia Beach. And And I asked him two simple questions. How do you know how much tax to charge me on my property? And how do you know where to send the bill? Two simple questions. Treasurer's office put me on hold, and then they hung up on me. So I had to call them back. I called them back, asked the same questions, and they're like, oh, well, we all got to pay our taxes. It goes for this. I said, I'm not disputing any of that. I'm asking these two simple questions. How do you know how much to charge me, and how do you know where to send the money? And how do you know who to bill? They couldn't answer. They put me on hold again. They got back to me. They couldn't answer. So they shifted me over to the commissioner of the revenue's office. I asked the same two questions. They couldn't answer the questions. They put me on hold, same thing. You got to pay your taxes. I'm like, I'm just asking questions, ladies. I'm just asking questions. I would just like answers to these two simple questions. They couldn't answer. They patched me through to the city manager's office. Now, these are the people charging me property taxes, and they can't answer two basic questions. So they put me on hold, did the same thing, the same issue. They couldn't answer the question either. Guess where they transferred me to? I'll put these up. They transferred me to the city attorney's office. Dana Harmeyer. I asked him the same questions. Guess what the answer was? He said, well, by the Virginia Constitution, Article 10, Section 4. Article 10 is taxation. Section 4 is corporate taxes, which I found out after I looked it up. And he also said, via a statute, which is 58.1, which is Virginia taxes statutes, and I forget which section of that particular article. But he told me, and I looked it up, and I stayed up all night long. I read all of the taxation statutes. I read the entire Virginia Constitution under Article 10, Section 4, which authorizes localities in Virginia, because we're a commonwealth. The state doesn't tax, but the localities do. That's one of the differences between a state and a commonwealth. So I stayed up all night long and looked all of those up. And I came to the conclusion that they can't tax private property that's not engaged in commercial activity. I don't have a business license. My address is not registered or listed as a business. I don't conduct business at my property. And all the taxation code in Virginia and all of in the Constitution both state that. They go roundabout ways. You got to kind of read between the lines, but there's nowhere in there that the people authorized the Commonwealth of Virginia or any locality thereof to tax our right to own private property that's not engaged in commercial activity. So I stayed up all night long. I didn't sleep that night, reading the Constitution, reading the statutes, reading all that stuff, and I came to the conclusion that I did. So I wrote a nice little letter to Dana Harmeyer, the city attorney, cut and pasted stuff out of the Constitution, cut and pasted stuff out of the Virginia statutes that led me to the conclusion that I came to, that I'm not required to pay this. And I sent him that, asking a bunch of questions. And I also, the next day, I sent the treasurer, who was the one sending me the tax bills, or sending my mortgage company the tax bills. And I sent her a very similar letter asking questions. What authority do you have? Where did the people give you the authority to do what you're doing? Please explain that. So they couldn't. I waited and waited and waited for them to give me an answer. They couldn't do it. They didn't do it. Not one that satisfied the questions I had. So once I got that letter back, basically trying to bullshit me is what they were trying to do, because I already knew. I already read everything. I already completely understood it. That what they were doing was unlawful. They're not authorized. They don't have the authority to do it. But they just do it. And they're hoping we won't notice that. So once I realized that, I got a bunch of bullshit. I never heard back from the attorney. I mean, the treasurer, who is Victoria Lee Henderson. Never heard back from her, the elected treasurer of Virginia Beach. But I did get a letter back from Dana Harmeyer, obfuscating everything, trying to change the subject, sent me case law that had to do with corporate taxes, not private property, not business related. He couldn't answer any of the questions that I had. And he did not confirm any of the stuff that I pointed out to him. He just bullshitted me. So once I realized that I was onto something, I called my mortgage company, Rocket Mortgage, and I said, hey, I would like to take care of my escrow account, which is my taxes and insurance. I'll take care of that myself. I want to keep that separate. You just take care of the premium and the interest, and I'll take care of the taxes and the insurance. They said, okay, no problem. We can separate those. So I got on the phone with my insurance company, who is State Farm, who I have my house and my property insured through. Since I owned it in 1995, I never changed it. And I paid my mortgage, or my taxes. Jesus, come on, Rich. I paid my insurance for the year. Got that out of the way. And I just decided I'm not going to pay the taxes, because I figured out I don't owe them. So why pay them? So I stopped paying the taxes. So the city of Virginia Beach, in their infinite wisdom, after a month or two of me not paying the taxes, they got wind of it and they sent me a letter saying that I owe these 2 months worth of back taxes. Well, I knew that to be not true. And the bill that they sent me wasn't signed. Nothing was authenticated. It was just a bill. No signature on it. No, none of that. So I sent them a letter back saying, well, when you can verify that this is an actual bill that I owe, then I won't mind paying it. So after that went through, they didn't like that at all. So they realized they couldn't get nothing from me, and they realized they had nothing to stand on. So what do? They contacted my mortgage company. And guess what they did with that? They sent my mortgage company a letter stating that I owe back property taxes. So the mortgage company, a couple weeks later, sends me a letter stating that they are going to go ahead. They don't dispute property taxes, because the mortgage company has an interest in the house. The house is collateral for the loan. And the mortgage company owns the collateral. So they have an interest in my property because they loaned me the money. Now that's a whole nother fraud in and of itself, because my signature on the promissory note actually created the loan, which was already paid for by my promise to repay. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. We could get into that on a whole nother video, but let's stick to what we know. So the mortgage company tells me that if I don't pay my taxes, that they are going to pay it and they are going to roll it into my mortgage. So either way, I'm going to be forced to pay these taxes, right? Wrong. So once I got that letter with Rocket Mortgage explaining what they're going to do, which I appreciated. I like to know what they're going to do. I want to know the truth. I don't want them to bullshit me and tell me a bunch of stories and then do something different. So after I got that letter, I stayed up all night long reading all of my closing documents and everything from the current mortgage that I had, trying to figure out how all this works. And there was nowhere in my closing documents that I agreed to pay, one, property taxes. Nowhere was it even mentioned in there. And two, nowhere was it mentioned in there that my mortgage company is going to actually pay them and roll it into my mortgage. I never authorized that to happen. Never. That wasn't part of the agreement, nothing. So the next day, I called my mortgage company, Rocket Mortgage. And I got transferred around. You know, I was talking to these secretaries. I'm like, look, I need to talk to somebody. I need to talk to an executive in the company. I got some major questions here that need to be figured out. So finally I got transferred around. Finally I got transferred to Detroit, Michigan, which is where Rocket Mortgage is based out of. They're based out of Detroit. And I finally got a hold of this lady who is an executive, and we talked on the phone for over an hour, and I was explaining to her the fraud that is property taxes. You know, there's no commercial activity going on my property. It's just simply where I live, and this and that. And I said, I read the Constitution, everything about taxation. Nowhere does it authorize any local government to tax the right to own private property. We have a right to own it. You can't tax a right. And I explained to her about the statutes and how all that worked, and in Virginia, and I asked her if she had a mortgage. She said yes. And I asked her, you know, look at your Michigan Constitution, look at your Michigan codes, and you're gonna figure out the same exact thing, because it's the same in all 50 states, that the government cannot tax a right. They can't turn a right into a privilege and tax you for it. I told her, I said, look into it. You're going to find the same thing in Michigan that I found in Virginia, and they're defrauding the people. She was very interested. She was very interested in what I had to say. But then at the end of the conversation, and she appreciated me explaining all of that, and then at the end of the conversation, she told me, she said, look, I understand what you're saying, and the way you explained it, it makes perfect sense, and I get what you're saying. She said, however, we as a company, we are a finance company. We do mortgages and other finances. We're not tax professionals. You know, we don't know all of those things, but we have an interest in your property. We hold the mortgage on your property, and your property is held as collateral. And we don't want any locality or anybody swiping your property away and taking our collateral because you owe taxes. We're simply going to pay them and roll them into your mortgage. And I told her, I said, well, thank you, you know, for telling me what's going to happen. I like knowing things. I don't like being bullshitted and misled. I said, I've got some serious thinking to do here. And she said, let me give you my personal cell phone, and I want you to call me when you get this resolved. I'm really, really curious to hear how you handle this and what happens. I said, okay. And I think I called her it was on a Friday that I called her. And let me put these windows down. And so that weekend, I thought about it all weekend. What am I going to do? So since I had all this big nest egg sitting in my 401k, I thought, well, I'm going to pay off my mortgage. I'm getting this mortgage company off my back. It's been a few months since I've been down here. So, I called and requested a 14-day payoff notice. What's it going to cost if I pay this off in 14 days? They sent it to me. I'm like, damn. So I got a hold of my 401k people. I took the money out to pay off my mortgage. They decided they're going to take out income taxes, or they're going to take out federal and state income tax and pay the state and the feds a lot of money. They paid Virginia almost $10,000, and they paid the feds $51,000. So that's like $61,000 in taxes, income taxes I'm paying to take my own money out of my 401k. Well, after arguing with Fidelity, who managed my 401k, and I couldn't convince them that I don't owe income tax on this compensation, that they're making a huge mistake. Well, they didn't believe it, so they went ahead and paid it. I'm like, all right, I just figure a way to get that back from the government. So I went ahead and paid my mortgage off, took care of all it, paid all them exorbitant taxes, $51,000 worth of federal and state taxes. So when I filed my 2021 income tax, I filed a 1040 NR as non-resident and claimed all of those taxes that were paid on behalf of my 401k as an overpayment, and requested that refunded to me because all of that was non-taxable. So they fought with me and fought with me and fought with me about it. Well, that was recently resolved. That was recently resolved. And I had this IRS agency F-18 Super Hornets out of NAS Oceana. Did you hear them? Well, so I filed this in January of 2021. It wasn't too long later, I got notice from the IRS saying, oh, not only do we not owe you $51,000, you owe us $30,000 on top of what you claim that we owe you. which is like an $81,000 change from what I filed and signed under penalty of perjury that it's accurate. And when you file a 1040NR, you can't do an electronic file. You have to send it in manually, mail it in. So I mailed it in like I was supposed to. And then I get this letter back from Philadelphia explaining that, oh, I must have made a mistake. So I ordered my tax transcript to try to figure out what happened. What did the IRS do to make such a screw up? Well, I ordered my tax transcript, and guess what they did? They moved 100% of the money I claimed was non-taxable income, and they put it as all of it as being taxable. So not only do they not owe me a return, I owe them another $30,000. So I sent them a letter in Philadelphia. I said, how the hell can this be? How can you erroneously move all of my taxable income and list it as taxable? That's what you did. And I sent him a copy of my tax transcript. I said, that's exactly what you did. And I signed this document under penalty of perjury. How could you do that? That's unlawful. You can't change my tax return. It's already signed. So they sent me this went in. I sent it certified mail. They received it. It's about 3 weeks later I get another letter, and now they say, oh, now not only that, but I owe interest on the amount that they claim that I owe them, and penalties because I'm not paying them. So guess what Rich did? I got a hold of the IRS, and there's this outfit out of Austin, Texas that reviews disputes. They're part of the IRS, but they do dispute resolution. So I got a hold of them, sent them all the same paperwork. I sent them a copy of my 1040NR, all of my documents, everything that I originally filed, along with the letters I'm getting from Philly claiming I owe more money. So they said they're going to look into it. And they got like 60 days to review it and to do something. So about a month later, I get another letter from Philadelphia explaining that, oh, now I owe more interest and more penalties, and they're going to garnish my wages, and they threatened a whole bunch of stuff. And I sent them letters back saying, you know, you have no authorization to do this, and all this and that. And then I get another letter back from Austin saying they haven't resolved anything yet. They haven't resolved anything yet, and that they need another 30 days to resolve it. So I wrote them a letter saying I'm not authorizing another 30 days. Let's get this taken care of. Obviously, somebody made a mistake and I want it corrected. I don't have time to wait. I've been waiting months already. You know, you're just accruing interest on my return. So I keep getting threatening letters from Philadelphia with more interest and more penalties and more of this stuff. And I keep getting more letters asking for extensions from Austin, Texas to review and correct this. So this went on for over a year. Over a year this went on. So finally, just a couple weeks ago, and I kept holding my ground. Every time I would get a letter, I would send something back to them saying, you're not authorized to do this, blah, blah, blah. Make a long story short. This kept going and kept going. And finally, just a couple weeks ago, all I got was a check in the mail. Just a check from the Treasury of the United States for $65,112. That was over $7,600 worth of interest that they had to pay me for sitting on this thing for a couple years. They sat on it for a couple years. No explanation, no apology, no nothing. Just a check explaining that it was for 2021 income taxes. So it was finally resolved. Damn, that sounds good, don't it? Did a muffler delete on this thing. Man, does it sound good. So, it's been resolved. They finally cut me a check, and the key point to take from this, the key thing to take, never accept what they send you. Always rebut everything they send you. The government is not in charge of the people, and that's where most people go wrong. We are in charge of the government. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it is. And we're supposed to make sure we let them know every time they do something to call them out on it. If they're wrong, call them out. They don't tell us what we're supposed to do. We tell them what they're supposed to do. We read the Constitution, we figure out what their authority is, and we hold them to it. If they don't have authority to do something, don't let them do it to you. If you're one of the people like me out there that works for an employer, not the government, I worked for a private employer, they can't take income taxes out of your compensation. You're trading your labor for compensation. It's not considered income in accordance with Title 26 United States Code. Look at the definition of income. Look at the definition of income. Compensation for your labor is not income, as defined. It's just not. You can trade your labor for whatever you want. You can trade it for gold. You can trade it for Federal Reserve notes. You can trade it for commodities. You can trade it for oil. You can trade it for diamonds. You can trade it for whatever you believe or think has value that equals your labor. It's not taxable, people. Now, capital gains and commercial activity and stocks and stuff like that, some of that is taxable. Be careful with that stuff. Know what you're getting into. Read the definitions of these terms, or you're not going to know what those terms mean. You have to know what these terms mean. Look up the word person. Person is not me. I'm not a fiduciary. I'm not a trust. I'm not an LLC. I'm not a sole proprietor. I'm none of these things. If you're just a man or a woman out there eking a living, trading your labor for compensation, it's not taxable by any entity in general, but you have to look up your situation. Not everybody's in the same situation. If you're engaged in commercial activity, there's probably a pretty good chance that you're going to have a legitimate tax obligation. But you have to know what that is. You have to read the definitions. You have to understand these things. You can't just let people and entities take advantage of you. We have a right to earn a living. We have a right to travel. We have a right to do all of these things. They can't license a right. Right now, I'm out driving, or not driving as defined by the code, but I'm out traveling around. I don't need a license to do that. I surrendered that in 2019. Now, when I get pulled over by a law enforcement agent, they don't know this stuff. They're not taught this in the academies. All they know is policy and procedure. Oh, you don't have a license, registration, and proof of insurance? Oh, we're going to impound your private property. Well, they can't lawfully do that, but they do. They'll take me to jail. They won't take me to a magistrate like they're required to. That's another problem they're going to have. I'm not going to be properly served to come to court. They're going to hand me a ticket. That's not proper service of process. That's another problem they have. They never do what they're required to do. They do what their policy, practice, and procedure dictates that they do. First cop that pulls me over is going to do a warrantless search. They're going to ask me for all these documents without a warrant. In Virginia, that's called a warrantless search. If they do a warrantless search, they're guilty of malfeasance in office. If they're convicted of that twice, automatically they forfeit their employment. Automatic. And when I go after them for a warrantless search, I could seek punitive and compensatory damages. And believe you me, I'm going to do that. The very first chance I get, I'm going to do that. First time I get pulled over, I have my property seized. I might go directly to jail. They might take me right to booking. They're supposed to take you directly, without unnecessary delay, to the nearest magistrate. No matter what time of the day, no matter what day of the week, they're supposed to take you directly, without unnecessary delay, to the nearest magistrate to have a determination of probable cause. Because a police officer cannot determine probable cause. He has reasonable suspicion, and it must be verified and validated by a judicial officer, not a fucking police officer. Police officers don't have that authority. They only have reasonable suspicion. So we have to hold them to that. The question is, why don't we? Why don't we hold them to the standards with which they're supposed to uphold? Why don't we do that? I can tell you why we don't do that. Because most of us don't know. I know, and the only reason I know is because I read it. If I hadn't read it, I wouldn't have known these things. I've been pulled over before when I had a driver's license. What's the first thing I did? I handed them my driver's license, my registration, and my proof of insurance. I didn't know any better. Neither do most of you out there. And I get it. It's okay. But I think it would behoove you and all of us to read and understand these things and understand what our rights are. We have a right of due process of law, which means a lot of things. But one thing that it does mean is that we can't just get seized at our liberty without probable cause. And a judicial officer has to determine that. It's not determined by the police officer. So let's make sure they do that. We make sure they do that, everything will be fine. Everything will be okay. If a magistrate determines that there is probable cause to do what the police officers did to me, then that judicial officer or that magistrate can also be held accountable, because if it turns out there was no evidence to make a positive probable cause determination, then that judge or that magistrate erred. Oh my gosh, what the hell is this? Man, they're clearing a lot out here. I'm on Dam Neck. I think I'm going to go to IHOP and eat some breakfast. I haven't done that in well over a year. But anyway, I'm going to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. I think we should all do that. We should all know what the rules are. We should know what law enforcement is supposed to be doing and what they're not allowed to do. They're not allowed to violate our rights, first and foremost. They can't just willy-nilly pull us over. Technically, if we have not injured somebody or damaged some property, or they have a warrant. Those are the only three reasons a police officer should be pulling anybody over, is unless and upon they have a warrant to do so, or they witnessed us damage property or injure somebody. Then they have every right to pull us over, question us, do an investigation, find out what's going on, and take the appropriate actions. If it's an arrestable offense, they should arrest us and take us to the nearest magistrate to have a probable cause determination. That's how this is supposed to work. But that ain't how it's working, because we don't enforce our rights. We don't hold them to the law they're required to be upheld to, and we don't enforce our own rights. We allow them to walk all over us, dictate what we do, dictate major parts of our life. Why we do that, I don't know. I don't agree with doing that. But that's how it works. That's what they do. Because we allow it. We allow them to get away with it. I'm not going to do that. I refuse to do that. I'm not going to allow these clowns to violate my rights ever again. Because it's important. It's very important. I wish everybody felt this way, because if everybody started doing these things, here's what I'm going to do. I've already got it worked out in my mind. When I get pulled over, I'm going to get pulled over. I'm running Ohio plates on my car that aren't registered to anything. I bought them online through licenseplates.com. Being that I live in Virginia Beach and I'm originally from Ohio, I was born and raised in Ohio until I joined the military at 18 years old. And I never had a residence back in Ohio ever again. I've been stationed for the last 34 years. Well, I've been living for the last 34 years in Virginia. I got stationed here in 1990, and I've decided to make Virginia my home. And since I surrendered all my registrations, my driver's license, canceled all of my insurance, because all of my cars, trucks, motorcycles are paid off. I don't have a loan. I don't have any debt. I have zero debt. No credit card debt, no car debt. The only insurance I have is my health insurance and my home insurance. I don't have any insurance on any of my cars or motorcycles or pickup truck. Nothing. I figure if I harm somebody, if I cause damage, then I'm responsible for it. And insurance is only limited liability. We, the people, have full liability. It's not limited liability. Insurance companies only have limited liability. And you're going to find that out the first time you go to file a claim on your insurance. They're going to give you a bunch of shit. They'll take your mortgage payments every month. I'm sorry. They'll take your insurance premiums every month. But just go try to file a claim against your insurance and see what happens. They're going to give you a bunch of shit by paying it off. Some don't. I had a claim on my house one time. I only ever made one claim on my house. And that's when we had a hurricane back in 2007. Hurricane Isabel. And some of my siding and some of my shingles blew off my roof. Nothing major. Didn't have any leaks or anything. It's just cosmetics, but I filed a claim on my insurance. I owned this house since 1995. I lived there for 29 years and made one freaking claim. And they denied it. So you just wait till you go to make a claim on your insurance policy and see what happens. They're quick to take your money and slow to pay out. That's how their business model works. That's why you have all these fly-by-night Tom, Dick, and Harry insurance companies popping up overnight. It's a very lucrative business. It's very lucrative. All right. Well, I am pulling in here to IHOP. And I'm going to get me some beef fast. Anyway, this is pretty much it for now. I really want you to think about what I've been talking about. Because if we all do this and we all start standing up for ourselves and holding the powers that be, or the powers that claim, to their limited lawful authority, and they have very limited authority. They have no authority over the people unless we injure somebody or we damage property. Otherwise, we should be left the fuck alone. We shouldn't be messed with. We shouldn't have some code enforcement coming on our property telling us we need to mow our grass. They have no ownership or interest in your property unless you're leasing it from them, or you bought it from them and they maintain some sort of interest or ownership. Most of us don't buy our property from the locality. We buy it from a private seller. You don't owe property taxes on it unless you got a registered business on your property and you gain income, which is profit. Then yes, you have a tax liability. You have property tax liability for that portion of your business that is your property. And you have income tax liability from the profits that you make from the privilege that you were granted by having a business license or some sort of a license they granted you. A license is permission to do something that you wouldn't already have permission to do. Something that would be unlawful for you to do without it. Think about that. If you don't have permission to do something and you need to get a license or permission or a permit to do something, then you're getting their permission. The question is, do you need their permission? That's the big question people don't ask themselves that perhaps they should. Did I bring my wallet? Yes, I did. Time to go get some IHOP. All right, talk to you guys later. I hope you absorb this. I hope you take this, internalize this. Read, comprehend, understand, do what you need to be doing. Do what you need to be doing. Anyway, I'm out of here. Peace. Well, that was an interesting trip at IHOP. Thought I was getting hash browns. Ended up getting pancakes. Not a big pancake fan. I am a hash brown fan. A little disappointed. It's alright. That's alright. We'll survive. It's all good. Got some more work to do at the house anyway, so. Oh, now I'm full. Now what to do? It's time to go home. Now that y'all have had a chance to think about what I've told you. Don't just believe me though. I think everybody should look up this stuff and understand it and implement it, incorporate it, internalize it. It's like this for a reason. This is the reason the colonists picked up their muskets and fought off the most powerful army in the world at the time, the British Army. Picked up their freaking muskets. I think the least we can do is hold them accountable for what they're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, you did, but I'm saying for my team came over here to play her motherfucking team and give her some game. I could have set my motherfucking team out there. Our season didn't even start on the 24th. I was going to play.
So, good days are coming. We just got to hold them to it. If we don't, no one will. So it's now 13 after 11. IHOP was pretty busy. It's the busiest I've ever seen it. Everybody's catching on to my IHOP. Be able to go in there and get in and get out of there in 20 minutes. This time it took me 20 minutes just to get my grub. attention. But please take some time and look into this. This is very, very critical that we all come to read the same material and come to the same conclusions. This is lawful to do this. We're not breaking the law by reading the law and following the law. Our government only has limited authorities. They act as if they have ultimate authority. But we the people did not give them authority over our daily business, our daily lives. Right now they currently have control over the healthcare system. They run the Medicare system, the Medicaid system. They run, your local government runs unemployment insurance. They have a hand in approving the drugs and the Food and Drug Administration. They approve GMO shit in our food. GMO shit in our food is a bad thing. We should be eating natural food, not genetically modified food. If God didn't make it that way, then it's not normal. But our government's allowing this to happen. Of course, big corporations are going to take advantage of it. They make more profits. They have less nutritious food and make more profit. Or should I say, they make more or less nutritious food and make more profit. Meanwhile, we're paying more for it and we're getting less nutrition. We're getting false nutrition. Like the corn we get these days. It's not near as good as, it looks better than the corn we used to get, but it's not as nutritious. It doesn't have the value in it used to have. Government's allowing all this. Government's allowing all the 5G crap. They're saying this 5G electromagnetic radiation mimics COVID-19 symptoms by interfering with your red blood cells and their ability to carry oxygen. Kind of makes you wonder, don't it? It all came out about the same time. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Everything government gets involved in, it gets twisted. They hand out benefits to their cronies, which turn around and give them money. Defense industry, pharmaceutical industry, the insurance industry, the mining industry, the natural resources industries. They get their back scratched and somebody scratches another back. That's called corruption. I don't like corruption. I don't like the fact that they put sanctions on different things. That's called picking favorites. When you put sanctions on something or somebody or a group or a corporation or a nation, that's called the government picking favorites. That does not benefit the people. That hurts the people to benefit favored few. Capitalism and free trade benefits everybody because the market is self-correcting. If somebody's doing something bad in the market, or a bad product or something of that nature, the market is self-correcting. People will stop purchasing bad stuff, and it will correct itself without somebody intervening. It's just the way it's set up. Anytime there's intervention, there's problems. Anytime man intervenes in something, it creates more problems. It doesn't fix anything. It moves one problem from one area to another. And I'm getting stuck in traffic. Anyway, gonna let you go. Y'all have a good day, and peace.